Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Loanspark webinar. We'll be covering SBA financing today. My name is Creigh Blodgett. I'm your partner advocate here at Loanspark. Here's my contact info. My role is to support you in any scenarios you have or specific questions about the partnership. So feel free to reach out to me if you have specific leads to discuss or any questions after you go through this webinar. We'll kick off today's SBA financing webinar with a great quote here. Rising above pre-pandemic levels, the SBA backed more than 57,300 7A loans worth over $27.5 billion with a B to small businesses in fiscal year 2023. I think that's a great quote because it outlines that even though we're all aware in the business financing space that there was a ton of idle loans, PPP loans, and SBA assistance going on during COVID, which most people think may have been the height of SBA financing. Actually, we're still seeing SBA financing to continue to go strong and be a great financing option for small businesses. So I think this will be a valuable webinar. And without further ado, let's dive in. We'll be covering a few types of SBA loan categories today. Number one being SBA Rapid/Express. We typically see funding amounts on this program in between $50,000 up to $150,000. And it's a more streamlined SBA loan option for borrowers that can qualify for it. So if you have a borrower looking for a small cap loan, wants it done faster with less documentation requirements than an SBA 7A, SBA Rapid or Express may be a great option for them. Additionally, SBA 7A is probably the most popularly desired SBA loan simply because it goes up to $5 million in funding amount. Of course, it is a little bit slower compared to the SBA Rapid and Express, but still a great financing option if the borrower can qualify and is able to provide the documents necessary and work within that timeline. SBA 504 is the third category, and we won't be touching on it too much today. The reason being it's for real estate only loans, and the loan amount required is over $5 million. Due to that, we don't see a lot of SBA 504 requests come in, so we won't be covering it too much. But if you have that type of request or want to learn more about that, just let me know and I can get back to you. One other thing to keep in mind, SBA Rapid or Express is going to be strictly for working capital needs for the business. That can be anything from inventory purchases, right, marketing, some sort of growth plan. But SBA 7A can also include real estate components. So perhaps a business is looking to expand into a new location, right? And they need to build from ground up, or they need to purchase that real estate, maybe with a little bit of working capital as well. If there's any sort of real estate component, SBA 7A is going to be the better bet. So let's go into more information about the SBA Rapid loan here. As I mentioned earlier, it is going to be the fastest access to SBA financing for your applicants. And because it's allocated towards working capital, the term length will be 10 years max. The rates on an SBA Rapid loan will be prime plus 4.75%. And currently, prime rate is at 8.5%. So that comes out to 13.25% as an effective rate. By effective rate, what we mean is that will be the rate that essentially the loan is at right now. But because the rate's floating, if prime rate were to go down by 0.5%, so for example, if prime goes down to 8% in the next few months, which could be a possibility, the effective rate would similarly decrease by 0.5%. So their new effective rate would be 12.75%. And this effective rate will update every quarter. So as interest rates rise or decrease, your customer will experience, benefits there as well. There are monthly payments on this loan, and of course, a streamlined application process. In fact, we can actually get a pre-approval in 24 hours, assuming a full application is completed by the borrower and they meet the qualification criteria. And then you can actually have more than one SBA or Rapid SBA loans at one time. So you can actually have up to 3 SBA Rapid loans at one time. After you're funded on one, you can actually reapply for an additional SBA Rapid loan in the future after 90 days. And you can still combine this type of financing with lines of credit, equipment financing, right? So it's a great complement for some sort of financing stack that maybe is more customizable to the applicant. Also, another pro, I know I didn't hit on this initially, fastest access to SBA financing. Typically with an SBA rapid loan, we can get these done in 30 to 45 days, even less sometimes, depending on the responsiveness of the borrower and the processing timelines. But very fast timeline and turnaround time for an SBA loan. The only cons with the processing time is compared to other products that we offer and that you offer as a Loanspark partner, it can be a little bit longer to process, right? So if a customer needs to meet payroll obligations maybe next week or something like that, or if they have to purchase this truck before it comes off the market in 20 days, those types of scenarios may not be best met by an SBA rapid loan. They may want to take advantage of the situation with a short-term working capital loan, line of credit, something like that. And then they can always come back and refinance that if they wanted to, or get additional capital with the SBA rapid loan down the road. So always something to consider. So let's talk about who could actually qualify for a rapid SBA loan. So we're looking for an established business, right? More importantly, the SBA is, because the SBA is a government-backed loan and they are going to guarantee a percentage of that loan, based off of taxpayer dollars. So there's going to be some due diligence involved and some stricter criteria. We're looking for 3 years time in business, a 720 FICO. Typically, we're going to be looking at a TransUnion on the rapid SBA, and then monthly revenues of 15K or more. This is a general figure. In reality, because the rapid SBA loan amount will be based off of their revenues in the amount of 30%, meaning if a borrower is making, only $150,000 a year in gross revenue, and we can only approve them for 30% of that amount, it wouldn't meet that minimum requirement of, $50,000 minimum loan amount. So to clarify, we really need this borrower to be making in gross revenue $170,000 a year so that we can get that 30% revenue figure over 50,000, which is the minimum loan amount. We're looking for LLCs or corporations. And that's borrower criteria in a nutshell. Of course, we will do a lot of underwriting due diligence, right? We want to make sure there's no serious tax liens, right? There may be some questions about, any other businesses that they own, right? A lot of business owners own multiple businesses. So there may be additional information that we'll want to know down the line. But in general, those are the general requirements to qualify. As far as documentation requirements, same concept, right? Additional items may be requested down the road. But in general, what we're looking for is a basic credit application, which is that Loanspark application that we e-sign to the applicant. We'll request a SBA pre-qualification application. This is the one that actually gets sent to the SBA for review. And then we'll request a government-issued photo ID and 2 years of tax returns. So I think we've covered, most of the benefits of SBA, rapid SBA loans, some of the requirements to qualify for a rapid SBA loan. Let's talk about a couple of use cases where a rapid SBA loan really worked out well for the applicant. This first case we funded a little while back. It was a $121,000 approval. This business had been a yoga studio that had been operating for 5 years and was doing about $406,000 a year in annual revenue. Again, you can trace back that their approval amount is about 1/3 of their annual revenue. So no surprises there. And then it was over a 10-year term. This was a working capital loan. They were able to, get that same prime rate. At the time, I think prime may have been a little bit different, but, it'll be that floating rate structure over that entire term. And we were able to get them funded in 21 business days. So again, that's not a funding timeline that you would see with a rapid or with the SBA 7A loan. This business owner was actually super excited about the fact that we were able to get them approved. They did have a tax liability issue that they were able to overcome, and they actually came back to us later on for an additional line of credit, and will continue to work with us in the future as well. All right, so the second use case was a SBA rapid loan for $150,000. This business was an automotive repair shop and maintenance shop that had been in business for 4 years. Same term length, 10 years, right, and same rate structure, but they were able to get funded in 18 business days. So one thing you'll notice is that the loan amount on this one was 150, even though they made 850,000 in gross revenue, because of course we cap at $150,000 for this rapid SBA program. All right. So let's talk about SBA 7A. Remember, this is our higher cap type program, right? Loan amounts actually will go up to $5 million on this program. We really minimum, really needs to be much higher than the rapid SBA. Anything from $150,000 and up would be a fit for SBA 7A. Term length on this program will actually vary. It can vary. And the reason being is because there's more flexibility with the SBA 7A versus being, only allocated towards working capital financing. An SBA 7A loan can be used for tenant improvements, new construction builds, purchase of a retail space to owner occupy and also have working capital. So we can see term length stretch from 10 years all the way to 30 years if there is some sort of real estate component. Competitive rates. Rate structure on an SBA 7A loan will vary from lender to lender. It is typically a little bit lower rate than an SBA Rapid. SBA Rapid being prime plus 4.75. With an SBA 7A, you can see a term sheet in range of anywhere from prime plus 1% to prime plus 3.5% in general. So a little bit lower rate due to the increased loan amount requested. It'll be a monthly payment structure as well, and there are floating or fixed rates available. We don't see a lot of fixed rate requests, but if that's something that's a hot button for your applicant, that's something that we'll be able to discuss with them. Of course, we can get a pre-approval done very quickly. We'll do full due diligence on the cash flow of the business and some other underwriting criteria, which I'll get into in a minute, but we can get that pre-approval done within 48 hours. And of course, we'll just do a soft loan credit for that pre-approval. Those are some of the benefits of an SBA 7A loan. Let's talk about the cons. Higher documentation requirements is going to be the #1 con of this program, right? There's a saying in the space, right? I don't know who says it, but fast money typically isn't the cheapest. The cheapest money typically isn't the fastest, right? So with an SBA 7A loan, you're getting very competitive rates on very good terms, and it's a government-backed loan. You can expect higher documentation requirements, right? It's possible that tax returns, financials will be requested, DSCR minimums to meet, that sort of thing. And those are the questions that we'll be sure to convey to either the partner or the applicant to make sure that we're educating the client and walking them through the next steps so they understand every step in the process, because quite frankly, it can be a longer process. Speaking of the processing time, typically with an SBA 7A loan, we see funding timeline of 45 to 60 days. That's pretty typical, sometimes less, sometimes longer, right? So if a 45 to 60 day funding timeline doesn't work for your client, would be worthwhile to set up other options in the meantime. And then of course, just like an SBA Rapid, lots of customers and applicants will come in, finance something short-term, get approved for an SBA 7A loan, pay that off, and minimize their payments over a longer term. In terms of requirements to get approved for an SBA 7A loan, we're also looking for an established business, right? It's got to have 3 years time in business, 660 FICO preferred. You'll notice that it's a little bit different than the SBA Rapid FICO score requirement, which was 720. Reason being is that there's going to be so much due diligence involved in terms of the finances of the business that there's a little bit more flexibility allowed when it comes to the FICO score. We are looking for $20K a month in minimum monthly revenues. Again, a lot more, due diligence will be performed on what those revenues actually mean. Do they actually, I guess, reflect the financial strength of the business, right? Is it profitable? What do the current debts look like? Are there other businesses owned by the applicant? So there's going to be a lot more, but in general, $20K minimum monthly revenue is required. and of course, LLC or corporation. In terms of documentation requirements, we're looking for that same basic credit application. We're looking for a government-issued photo ID and 2 years of tax returns. Likely, just depending on the loan request itself, underwriting will require financials from the last year and year to date. So that will look like a balance sheet and profit and loss statement, as well as a debt schedule. And of course, use of funds will be extremely important. So we're going to want a clear understanding of where the funds will be used. Is there some sort of business plan, right? What's the return on investment and that sort of thing. All right, let's dive into a couple of use cases or recently funded 7A loans that we facilitated. We funded a $650,000 loan for a e-commerce company that had been in business for 3 years. They were doing about $900,000 in annual revenue. And the loan amount was over the rapid SBA maximum. So we pushed them into this program, although the funds were ultimately used for working capital and expansion needs. So the business owner, although they were making $900,000 a year in this business, and were able to get approved for $650,000. They were able to do that by showing that they had a really strong financial strength in the company. They had a good amount of liquidity outside of the company and personal assets and that sort of thing. And they had a good business plan. They had a strong return on investment that they were able to convey to the underwriting team. And we were able to get them approved for a loan relative to their annual revenue that probably wouldn't have been possible with other types of programs. The second one we funded recently, by the way, that one took 45 business days to fund. The next one was a loan amount of $2.2 million that was approved for a restaurant that had been in business for 8 years. This restaurant was doing $8.5 million or so in annual revenue. And the goal of this loan was actually to build out a new space for this restaurant that they would own and owner occupy. So they moved out of a lease space, did a ground up construction on this new space, and would be occupying that space. So they were able to get kind of a blended solution where there was a real estate component and a working capital component. So ultimately, max term was 25 years on that deal, and we were able to get them approved for prime plus 2.5% in 51 business days. Of course, maybe you're wondering, why 45 business days on the first one, 51 on the second one? Well, if there's a real estate component involved, it's possible that there may be additional plans required or additional information requested about the business plan or the location or surveys and that sort of thing. And so that may have contributed to a little bit longer timeline. So again, everyone, I think we covered some great information here specific to our SBA financing programs, but also remember, our goal is to fund every deal, right? We're not just an SBA lender. We're not just in real estate or business financing. We want to be your one-stop shop, right? We've created an easy lead submission process for you, fast turnaround times on applications. We're very easy to reach and quick to reach out to your applicants. We have high approval rates. We've worked to develop all these types of lending programs to ensure that we can, approve the most amount of clients as possible and to meet those clients' business needs. So our programs are flexible. Of course, at the end of the day, we know that customers are rate sensitive. Our rates and terms are very competitive. We're industry leading. And of course, our goal is to help you fund more deals faster. So our goal is to take it off your plate, and we do it for you and your customer.